second sims, the big wiggle here.
Mohamed Patel wins here.
Other than Rd.3 Championship.
Oh, he's done it!
Look at these two go.
Oh, he's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.
Hello and a warm welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as you join us for round 3 of the Formula SimRacing Pro Championship. 2 fantastic opening rounds promise greatness for the rest of the season, and so the bar is well and truly high. A quick reflection of how it shaped up in Malaysia. Redemption day for the Super Venturi driver of Jan Grankvist, who was able to make amends for his misfortune in Imola and was able to take to the top step. Kaz Rietveld, keeping his run of form, made it P1 and P2 for his opening 2 rounds, and finally Lalu was able to etch themselves onto the podium and round off in P3. With the pros, it's well and truly anyone's game for the rest of this season. What's in store for us today? Well, we travel to Japan and to Matsusaka for the Japanese Grand Prix, a circuit famed for its flow and its excitement. In seasons prior, it has proven to be a pivotal moment in the championship, and I'm sure today will be nothing less. Drivers today are on high alert, and the threat of clouds loom over the circuit. Could we see some rain-soaked action here today? I, for one, cannot wait. Before we dive into quali, let's say a massive thank you to our broadcast partners of VCO, as well as returning sponsors of Mesita Esports, SimLabs, and 3D Wraps for supporting and aiding FSR. With that out of the way, my name is Zach Sweeney. I have Richard King alongside me with Cam on cams today, behind the scenes, directing the show. Richard, it's me and you once again. Let's get your thoughts and feelings into round 3.
I'm really excited. The weather is definitely something we just talked about in Malaysia, but it is actually a real threat today. And I know that there's been a big conversation across all the different forms of communication within FSR, with lots of people practicing for wet, lots of people expecting wet weather. And I am praying that we get a wet weather race here, because it is going to make it an absolute thriller for all of our drivers out on track.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, this is round 3 of 10, and it's slightly shorter than last season, which saw 12 rounds. That means less rounds, which means each round is ever more important, and you have to maximize each and every one because you've got less time to make the ground up. So it's all about consistency, and those drivers, such as Kaz Rietveld, who we saw P1 and P2 in his opening 2 rounds. It's consistency like that will certainly see you rise to the top of the championship.
Indeed, Kaz has been up at the front. He was there obviously at Imola and just showing his consistency going through into Malaysia as well.
Yeah, well, here we are into qualifying. 3 times laps these guys get, and at the moment, I think it's Mancini at the top, but no times set at the moment. We've got Vandeny on a decent lap here, 32.2 to the first sector. That's around about 2/10 off what we were seeing in the Academy Series just a moment ago, but it is Nizio Purple to the first sector at the moment, and you can see every one of these guys on that soft compound tyre. That's because if you are new, they get free choice of tyre for the race, so everyone is given absolutely everything with these softs in qualifying. Vandeny sets the benchmark at 27.970, but look out, because here comes Ivanov. He's going to be the next one across the line, and to see where he can put himself a little bit slower, and naturally going just under 0.2 of a second slower. But Kevin Morville sets the time. 27.8 is the one to beat.
Indeed, a nice fast lap. I must say, though, that for those eagle-eyed watching, there is one really big name that is not showing up on the left-hand side. Jan Grankvist, not here competing in qualifying.
That's a shock after his sort of his run of form. He's been fantastic so far this season. Really one of those front runners, and missing today certainly could play just completely destroy perhaps even a chance for him to have a run at the championship, because we said it's only 10 rounds. Missing one of them means you're really on the back foot.
Oh, and in fact, it's because he's been moved to the World Championship. So he's actually been taken away. So that's actually going to really help Kaz, who now is you've got to think, second position in the championship has already now been promoted to World Championship. He's looking back to Lalu, who's the next in the championship to compete against him. So it looks like for Kaz, his eyes are going to be shifting elsewhere. But right now, he needs to be focusing more on his qualifying lap than the championship standings, because you can see he's down in P11, which is not what the current championship leader needs, as we were a little bit of a wobbly ground effect driver there go through the final corner. Fiorenchini right at the bottom in P19 at the moment.
Yeah, well, Ground Effect boasted some good success in the Academy Series 1 and 2 in round 3, 1, 2, and 3 in round 2. Hopefully, they can carry some of that success forward into the Pro Series. But at the moment, Mancini is at the helm, nearly 3/10 clear of Cosmo Prosciutto, his Royal Blue Racing teammate, in second place. Our championship leader, though, as you rightly say, Kaz Rietveld, down in P11, 6/10 off the pole pace. But it is incredibly close, because look at Michaels and Chancellor Pilatus there, equal on their times to the nearest thousandth. So yeah, there is absolutely nothing between them, and that's going to be pivotal, because, you know, it all comes down to slightly braking a little bit earlier here, getting a better exit, getting on the power that a little bit earlier could be the difference between, well, 1, 2, maybe even 3 positions.
Indeed, that is so tight, as you say, definitely in that midfield when you look back. I mean, Mancini at the front there is absolutely putting a stormer of a lap, over 0.2 of a second clear at the moment. The rest of the field all coming in quite close to each other. The top 14 all separated by a second. But if you take that back and you can go even further if you take out Mancini from this one. We're riding on board at the moment of that P8 driver, going green in the first sector of a 32.1 and just powering through. You can go flat out, do 130 yards in these modern day Formula cars. You haven't got to worry about backing it out. Going up to that chicane, trying not to lock up and sending yourself too hard into there. Not trying to get a little bit too tight either, because there are sausage curves that if you just run slightly wide or slightly to the inside, you're going to be over those, and they're really going to unsettle your car. Not fast enough for the rest of the lap, though, and remains in P8.
Yeah, at the moment, unable to make any more progress. Of course, these guys only get 3 timed laps, so he's on to his second one. It's all or nothing for that final third lap, with only 3.5 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. Here's Hanko, at the moment 16th and a second off, but 2 green sectors. He might be able to get himself up the order. He does so indeed, up to P13. Here's Mancini. Can he improve on his already fantastic time? Unfortunately not. Got off to a good start. Unfortunately, couldn't hook it up for the final 2 sectors. He's going to have absolutely all or nothing for that final lap. But again, he's got the margin. Cosmo Prosciutto, his next best effort is still 2.5 back on Mancini's time. And Mancini has been an incredible qualifier. He just hasn't quite been able to get it off in the race. He's not quite been able to get off to a good start. And I think that's what's hurting him. And of course, the strategy as well. We saw in the Academy race, there was 2 strategies. Both worked pretty equally. And that could transfer into this one today. Here's Gitsoff in P18, 2 green sectors again. Unfortunately, his best effort still only 18th. But yeah, as you say, very, very close in qualifying. And it should be even closer in the race, because the DRS here, the push to pass as well, will certainly help these drivers in keeping it close.
The push to pass will definitely be utilised along this back straight as well as the main straight. Get to the inside here. You can get yourself far enough in front on the inside into 130R. You're going to be able to make that overtake nice and easy. We've seen it in the Academy Series. We saw it in the amateur race as well. It's such an easy pace to use that push start, get the overspeed. And you don't want to fight through that corner, but at the same time, you want to hold on and try to keep your position ahead. I think we're going to see quite a few overtakes around the circuit in some unconventional locations as well, because everyone is going to be pushing their absolute hardest.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in the Pro Championship. It really is anyone's game, and that's what I was saying a little bit earlier on in terms of the consistency. Because it's so close, you've got to be on it round in, round out. And unfortunately for Kaz, so far, it hasn't promised to be a very good round for him. I say that. It's only 6/10 off. He can certainly gain a couple of tenths, and just 2/10 would see him from, what, P12 up into P6. So he can, he can halve his position and get right up into the sharp end if he just improves by a little bit. But again, that's easier said than done. This is Stefan Michaels, 32.2, slightly slower to the first sector. Now coming up to the second sector split. Currently P9, 1/1000th off Lalu. And unfortunately, another white sector. But Mancini is onto his final flying lap of the session. He's going to try and improve and maybe etch himself a little bit further in front from the likes of Cosmo Prosciutto and Kevin Morville and Van Den Eep. But if you take Mancini out of the picture, it's an incredibly close qualifying session. So certainly shape up to be a very, very good race indeed.
as you say, even with Mancini in the picture, it's going to be such a good race because we know that Mancini is fast. He can't quite get off the line in the same ways that we've seen other drivers do so. His results show that so far this season. I mean, he's managed to finish 6th at Imola, which was good. He was in that top 10, but a 15th position crossing the line at Malaysia, a 3-place grid penalty added on top. That's 18th. He's not showing what he's able to do in qualifying. He's not able to bring that across for the results in the race, which obviously where all the points are accumulated.
Exactly. No points for qualifying. It's all scored in the race. And to do that, you've got to get to the checkered flag and you've got to get there in a good position. Look out for Barbakov, though. He's managed to pip Cosmo Prosciutto and get himself onto the front row for his final flying lap. This is Mancini in towards the Casio triangle, through the right, through the left, and it's all about this exit as you dip down, a slight undulation change on this quick sprint to the finish. Can he improve? It was a very good first sector, and he does, no, doesn't actually, stays as he was in that time of a 27.546. Unless Cosmo Prosciutto has an answer to it, it should consolidate pole position. That's how good his first time was. He didn't even need to improve on it. This is Harry Smith, the NetRex driver, 2 green sectors, currently P14. Can he get himself any higher, perhaps into the top 10? No, not quite. Unfortunately, had a pretty dismal final sector. A very shaky Frank Hamming as he rounds the final corner and around across the line. P12 for him, and that just goes to show how close it really is. This is whack. Needs about a 10th of a second in order to get himself ahead of Kevin Morville. Has he found that 10th of a second? Unfortunately not. Cosmo Prosciutto, though, at the death of it, managed to get under a 10th of Mancini, so it might be closer than we think.
Indeed, that was a fantastic lap right at the end of qualifying as Lalu comes across the line here. P11 as he crosses it, goes up to P8. So an improvement right at the end, showing that leaving it to the death of qualifying, the track's in the best position it can possibly be in.
Yeah, certainly so. And this is how the top 10 rack up after qualifying. It's Mirko Mancini for Royal Blue, a Royal Blue 1-2 because his teammate Cosmo Prosciutto will join him on the front row with Danny Vandeny in P3. Stoyan Barbakov P4 with Victor Ivanov rounding off the top 5. Kevin Morville for Super Venturi in P6 with Thomas Wack in P7. Then comes Lalu, P3 last time out in Malaysia. P8 is all he could muster up for qualifying today. Casper Nizio in P9 with Stefan Michaels rounding off the top 10 for Ground Effect SimRacing team. 5-10s cover the top 10. Very, very close indeed. 11th down with Kaz Rietveld, our championship leader for NetRex, only managing 11. Then comes Chantabalitis in P12. Frank Hamming P13. Patrick Hanko in 14th. Then comes Harry Smith for NetRex, rounding off the top 15. Fabian Barley in P16. With Ampaditis in P17. Rasmus Andreasen in P18. With Gitzoff in P19. And then comes Ferenczi in P20. 1.7 seconds. Incredibly close. Then Costas Van Vukas for Ground Effect. Had a pretty dismal run in the Academy Series. Didn't really get past turn 2. Unfortunately found himself out of the race. He starts P21 for this race. Well, final thoughts before we go to a word from our sponsors, Richard.
I think this is going to be a close race, as you say. It's a real shock to see Kaz so far down the order, but it could be that now we see new drivers up at the front, and this championship is going to get even more competitive going into what is a string of 4 races back-to-back with just a week in between.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we said, qualifying is done and dusted. We'll see you in just a little bit for warm-up and then the formation lap, then the start of the race. But very quickly, we've got a word from our sponsors and then the hot lap from Michi Hoyer.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's race day in the Formula Sim Racing 2022 Championship. We are live at Matsusaka for our presentation lap, going around the final chicane, going around the final turn, a little bit of a wheel spin. DRS wide open to start our flying lap here around the Matsusaka Grand Prix circuit. Going down the main straight with 220 kph, best overtaking zone. Into the jailbreaking turn 1. Lots of side-by-side action can be seen here. exit of turn 2, stay on the outside for opening up the entry to 3 and 4, lots of S's, so you need to be able to set up the car for direction changes very precisely as we go up the hill. Turn 7, Ren wants to come a little loose as we go over the crest. Short brake for Deckner 1 and then prepare for a heavier braking into the banking. Deckner 2, easy on the exit, don't go too wide as the AstroTurf can be unsettling for the car. Into the hairpin we go. Very important, the exit here, lots of traction required as we're going through the right hand bended straight up into 7th gear before going back to 4th into spoon corner, a little bit of throttle, then braking to make it to the inside here on the apex and spoon corner, then take away all that exit performance, going down the back straight to coming to a very fascinating corner, the 130R flat out to the left, and then heavy braking zone into the Casio triangle. Don't hit the anti-cuts as they can unsettle the car, kiss those curbs nicely, and then going down the power, try to stay on the medium or to the inside of the road, opening DRS, and that is one flying lap, guys, around the circuit here.
Well, welcome back then. That was a quick word from our sponsors and, of course, the lap by Michi Hoyer, showing you how it's done around this Japanese circuit. One that's very quick, very fast, and very flowing indeed. And I certainly cannot wait for the next 42 laps of the race here, which, you know, Pro always delivers, doesn't it, Richard?
It really does. It's always consistently to the end. We just don't know what's going to happen. The strategies really throw a whole new bag into the mix. We always talk about it at the very beginning, and the results that come out at the end of the race are nothing like what we expected.
Absolutely not. They always find a way to throw a curveball in, don't they? Do these pro lot. It's very close, and it's always got some fine margins in the mix as well, especially at a circuit like Matsusaka, where, you know, you've got to be on it. It's all about consistency. You know, it's all good being quick, but if you can't transfer that pace and keep it up for the next 42 laps, of course, strategy as well. Speaking to a couple of the drivers, they think it should be a 2-stop race for the 42 laps. But one stop is possible, and there's only about 2 seconds between the pace difference of a 1-stop versus a 2-stop. But they said a 1-stop is just so hard to complete, and it's just you've got to be able to manage those tires. It's all about patience, and you just can't afford to be messing around, because one mistake on those tires and they're off the cliff.
Indeed, I just put in some rubbish laps myself in the amateur series, and I realized that actually the strategy that you put into place, anything can happen and you can change straight away. You've got to think on the fly with the way that your tires work. But I think that the strategy has certainly impacted our championship right now, and it's put Cass right at the front. Obviously, think back to Imola, he was not in the fight for the lead, and Jan just doing his alternate strategy, not playing off. So Cass right now, top of the championship, a win, a second position. Talk about consistent. I think he's got to pull it back here, though, with such a poor qualifying P11. But right now, he's the most consistent driver on the grid, a gap of 14 points to P number 3 in our championship, of course, ahead of Lalu.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully he can keep that run of form up now. And if you did miss qualifying, this is how they shape up for the race today. Mirko Mancini for Royal Blue makes it a Royal Blue 1-2 with his teammate Cosmo Prosciutto alongside. Then comes the net wreck, so Danny Vandeney with Stoyan Barbakov P4. Victor Ivanov in P5 with Kevin Morville P6. Then comes Thomas Wack in P7 with Lalu, the other Royal Blue, in P8. A good qualifying, and hopefully they can make some progress towards the front. Casper Nizio in P9 with Stefan Michaels rounding off the top 10. Then comes our championship leader, Kaz Rietveld in P11. Frank Hammond for Vale eSports, 5th and 6th for them in the academy. Frank Hammond, what can he do from 12th on the grid? Then comes Patrick Hanko in P13. Harry Smith 14th with Fabian Barley P15. And then comes George in the Netrex, the 21 car in P16. Not much separating these guys at all. Ampazaitis in P17 with Rasmus Andreasen for the best esports in P18. Then comes Chris Gitsov in P19 and then Ferenci in P20. And it's the lone Kostas Van Bukas in P21 for ground effect. 21 cars on the grid today. We're on the formation lap. We're getting ourselves ready, and I certainly cannot wait for this one.
Indeed, let's just say that Van Fucus here stepping in for Matt Tucson, who was unable to compete today. So starting from the very back of the field, let's see what he can do in his first race in the Pro Series this year. But they line up on the grid, preparing themselves for the start of one of the most exhausting races of the season with all of the corners around this track.
Absolutely. And as we wait for Van Vukas at the back of the grid, the green flag will be waved. The 5 red lights will come on to set us off for round number 3 of the FSR Pro Championship. Mancini on pole, Cosmo Prosciutto alongside. We're waiting for those 5 red lights to illuminate our screens. Here they go. 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 red lights to the FSR Pro Championship. Round number 3 is underway here in Japan. A pretty slow getaway for Mancini. Prosciutto trying to look alongside, but look for Vandeny already trying to get into the mix as well. Ivanov going down the inside, having to cover off his bases. The 2 Netrex cars backing off each other. You can see Kevin Morville also trying to get into the mix, but a clean getaway for the 2 Royal Blues at the front. Mancini from Prosciutto, Barbakov and Vandeny with Nitsio. Your top 5 so far. Pretty damn clean. No major chaos in the mix so far. And Mancini, Prosciutto both working it really, really well at the start. Not really fighting each other, but Frank Hammond, yeah, it certainly wasn't clean for everyone because these 2, unfortunately, have got themselves into a mix.
Indeed, it's the one thing you don't want to happen on the opening lap. We've unfortunately already got a DNF, but it's the most tricky start to a lap, I think, that you'll get all season long. You've got not only such a tight first corner into turn number 2, but they managed to get through it nice and cleanly. It was going into those S's, and we're going to get a replay of what happens there, and it just, unfortunately, it looks like it was just a group of cars. You're going slightly... Yeah, you see, you bunch it up, and it's a tap from the rear, and unfortunately, more getting involved. You've got to be careful at that start, but you've won a push, and that's a shame for everyone involved.
Absolutely. Patrick Hanko was one of those people that was sort of just a passenger to it and really couldn't say much in that one. But just notice, it's a Royal Blue 1, 2, 3. Mancini, Prosciutto and Barbakov all round off. And it'll be interesting to see how much these guys fight with each other, whether they're going to be selfish, whether they're going to go for it. But with Kaz Rietveld only making up 1 position up into P10 on that lap, they need to make some progress and chase after him. But Vandeny is there for Netrex. Of course, they managed to get 1, 2, and 3 in Imola. So Netrex certainly have got some pace. So it might be a battle between the 2 Titanic teams of Netrex and Royal Blue. But he's got Nitsio for company just behind, practically pushing him up these S's. Very, very good. Very, very rhythm reliant. Because if you mess one up, you've pretty much messed them all up.
Indeed, you've got to get that first corner right. You've got to get it as smooth as you can, as like you said, because if you mess the first one up, you're going to mess them all up as you go through. But it looks like they've both got through there nice and smooth indeed. We're on board. Nitsio is getting right up the rear end of Vandeny. And you can see the top 3 already pulling away, and they're still slowly increasing that gap out the front. It looks like at the moment, we're just going to have to back out a little bit for Vandeny in that fight for the lead. Look to his rearview mirrors and try to hold on to P4 at these early stages. Strategy is obviously going to be a big part into this game, into this race. And I think that right now, it's an early doors. We've got Morville on the mediums up at the front there. He's inside that fight. He's looking to try and get involved in that fight for P4. But he's going to go longer than everyone else on the first stint. Everyone on softs. Pay attention to Morville. He was a big hitter at Malaysia with the alternate strategy until, unfortunately, some issues came his way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That alternate strategy can be very powerful if you can make it work. It's all about patience, really. Someone into the pit lane there. Who is that into the pit lane? That's Nitsio in? So perhaps damage, or this surely can't be a scheduled stop for him. And they could well be. Yeah, it's a drive-through. He's just driving through the pit lane. Unfortunately, picked himself up a penalty for jumping the start, which is a shame. But it's better to get it done and out of the way now. He tumbles towards the back of the grid, side by side with the Netrex of Ampaditis. On the outside is that of Stefan Michaels. Tries to make the move work, but unfortunately couldn't quite manufacture that one and get himself inside the top 10. And yeah, it's always ambitious going around the outside of these S's, but you've got to be careful. You've got to take an air of caution. You've still got a good 39 laps left in this race. You don't want to be thrown away too quickly, but if you can get yourself inside the top 10, then why don't you? Rietveld has made up an extra position. He's right in this mix. He's just behind Lalu there, and he's definitely making these soft compound tires work. And that's the thing with the pack, is that it keeps everyone close together, and it allows Rietveld to keep everything close together. This is what got Nizio the penalty, and it probably was just a very clumsy jump start.
Oh yeah, rolling forward before the lights had gone out, so he didn't actually get going until those lights extinguished, but he rolled forward out of his good spot, and that's an easy penalty.
Yeah, clear cut when it comes to jump starts, and it is a shame because it was something so small, but rules are rules, and that's how it shakes up. This is Rietveld on the back of Lalu. Can he go for the movement towards the Casso triangle? Lalu just sort of discourages it, bit shaky from the Netrex Grand Prix car of Kaz Rietveld. DRS will be in effect soon enough. That'll be the drag reduction system. That'll allow him to open that rear wing flap. But when you're in this train, there's not really much you can do because it's equal pegging. Everything sort of just balances itself out. A bit of a move further back, though. This might be Kaz Rietveld going for the move on Lalu. Had a bit of a look. Oh, no, in fact, it's the other Netrex, it's Ampaditis, going for the move on Stefan Michaels. Going for it again. But again, just similar to last lap, unable to get that run. We've seen before how Netrex often go for more straight line speedy orientated cars, but today they seem to be more of a sitting duck.
Indeed, they just don't seem to have the speed over everyone else as they have shown previously. Someone who has got speed, though, is Van Vukas, sitting in P12, obviously starting right at the back of the field. Yes, there was the issue in the opening lap, but he's made further positions, and he's showing actually quite a good run, as that was a big wobble there for George as he runs slightly wide. Fabian Barley going for the overtake on the outside, couldn't quite make it through. I was actually really fortunate that I was able to run a couple of the setups from these pro guys, and I must say to you, the setups, for me, they're uncontrollable. They are so wobbly. They just don't have as much rear end as you'd expect in a car. But obviously that's what makes them faster, but you've got to have so much car control, something I certainly don't have, that you can see why they're wobbling as much as they are, because they are absolutely on the limit.
Yeah, and that's the way to be quick, is to have a nice twitchy car. One you can trust is just, I'm going to turn, it's going to come with me, and it's going to stay there. But as you say, yeah, it's very tricky. That's why these guys are some of the best in the business, because they're able to control this car. They're able to keep it on the road. That's the most important thing. Here's Rietveld going to the outside of turns 1 and 2 on the outside of Lalu. Can he make it stick? We're going to have to wait and see. It's the outside of turn 2. Might just have to tuck him behind. I think he might do. There's always going to be a tricky move to make there. And there is a car off. Who is this? This is Thomas Wack, unfortunately. And that's a clumsy mistake. Easy one to make, because turn 2, you're trying to carry as much speed as possible. And we're going to have a look as to see what happened. Going up the inside of the Super Venturi driver might have just knocked him off a little bit. Going a little bit less speed through turn 2 onto the power. Yeah, that is a clumsy mistake, and unfortunately dire consequences.
Indeed, a very easy one to make. Fortunately, with the way that he hit that wall, it's just the front wing gone. He can get that car around the track and get it repaired. At this point, I'd say throw on a set of mediums, go for now another 2 stints on medium tyres all the way through to your end. Don't add an extra pit stop. Joe, for the same amount of pit stops as you originally were. You can see the recovery coming from that. We've seen it in the other series as well, particularly in my the amateur race that I was part of. A lot of drivers having a pit early. They completely changed their strategy up, but it worked out in the long run. So just a front wing. He's going to have to go around quite a lot of the track without it, but we could see him come back in the later parts of this race.
Yeah, certainly so. Don't count him out. You can see Rietveld still putting some pressure on Lalu. Can't quite decide where he wants to go. Lalu was like, I'm going to the right. Now I'm going to the left. And Rietveld, unfortunately, he was just caught out a little bit by that. And Kevin Morville is the one in front. He's on the medium compound tyre. He's losing touch to the likes of Ivanov and Vandeny in front. Here comes Lalu, though, going for the move on Kevin Morville. Going to get that car between himself and Rietveld. There's also Stefan Michaels, Van Vukas as well, trying to make up some places further back. But Lalu, get in that car. Kevin Morville on those medium tyres will be slower than Kaz Rietveld and will be able to hold him up, because Kevin Morville's been holding this entire train up, and that's allowed Ivanov, Vandeny and the top 5 to just break away from this midfield. So Kaz needs to dispatch of Morville pretty quickly if he wants to stay in touch with Lalu.
Especially as being on the soft tyres, those tyres are going to be ticking closer and closer to their sell-by date. The mediums obviously can go a lot longer, and I think we're going to be reaching that point for the softs where actually the mediums are going to become the faster tyre in probably about 2 or 3 laps. So if Rietveld going to make that move, he's got to make it sooner rather than later, because otherwise he's going to see that lovely, beautiful rear end of Kevin Morville in front of him just go away into the distance and be lost for the rest of this stint.
Yeah, he needs to maximise these tyres while they're still the quicker one. You are absolutely correct. And rFactor as well doesn't want to get bogged up behind. He needs to stay with Lalu and use him as a vessel to sort of catapult himself towards the top 5 if he's able to do that. That's the thing with Kaz is even when he's not quicker, he said last week he wasn't confident at Malaysia at all, but was still able to salvage a P2, you know. Second best. That's still fantastic. Here he goes up the inside of Kevin Morville, easy as you'd like it up the inside of the Casio triangle, and now he can set his sights slightly forward, break away more importantly from the like of Stefan Michaels and Van Vukas, who has had a fantastic start, might we add, from P21 on the grid. He's done a great job to get himself inside the top 10. You know, he's an academy driver and he's inside the top 10 in a pro championship, and not only that, he started from the back. So hats off to the Ground Effect Sim Racing team driver who, yeah, well, still a long way to go, but he's certainly setting himself up pretty well so far in this race, and he's certainly still in the mix. But yeah, now rFactor 1 second back on Lalu. He needs to just get himself in that DRS, latch onto the back of him, and then try and use him to catch up to his teammates of Van Vliet and Ivanov.
Indeed, I mean, at the moment it's the two teammates that are running together here, so are they going to work together or work against? That's going to be the question. Obviously, the Ground Effect team doing quite well in the Academy series as of late, with winning at every single race so far, if I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, being on the track at the same time, I haven't been able to watch those amazing races, but teamwork has been a big part of these pro races. We've seen it from race 1, Imola. We talked about it all race long at Imola, and is it now going to come into effect that we see these Ground Effect drivers who haven't had the best start in the Pro Series? Michael's moving into the top 10 in Malaysia as he goes to the inside onto the grass to try and make the move. That is definitely push to pass enabled, as you can see on the left-hand side. I said it in qualifying, push to pass on that back straight, you can get to the inside, but it looks like Morville maybe looked to the outside to go back up into the chicane, but not going to do it, and he's backed out. But that has not left Van Vukas too far off though. DRS, push to pass once again, disabled push to pass, but he's still got that DRS rearing open, and it's going to be a double overtake for the Ground Effect drivers, moving up now to P8 and 9.
Working together very nicely. Van Vukas had the slingshot with that push to pass, which we can now very nicely see. They get 60 seconds of that, in fact, 80 seconds of that over the course of the race to these Pro Series drivers. And it's the Academy, they get 60, and the World Championship get 100. So they get 80 seconds over the course of these 42 laps to use that push to pass, an extra little boost of power, as you can see. Amphiditis getting all sorts of squirrely and clearly showing that these Formula cars are certainly on a knife's edge, especially for a corner like Dunlop, because if you get it just a tiny bit wrong, you're either in the gravel on the outside, you're a passenger and you're going straight, or you clip one rear wheel on it and around you go. So luckily for him, managed to save that and keep it in check. But yeah, Van Vukas doing fantastic. Needs to get after his teammate, stick with his teammate, and work as well as he has been for the entire of this first stint. But to be fair to him, he's actually putting a bit of pressure on. He seems to be the quicker of the two cars.
He does, and I don't know whether that's just because of the way that he's been able to move up from the start. He hasn't been pushing those soft tyres as hard and therefore has more grip, or whether he is just genuinely the faster driver. But he could have gone for the overtake there. You could see he's stuck behind. Is that to get DRS, or is that because he isn't going for the fight with Michaels? I think we're going to see going up into the turn number 1 and 2 corner, of course, as he comes out. And is that going to be DRS and push to pass? So close as we go for an overtake into P number 3. Very close. Not quite enough for Ivanov up the inside of Barbikov there. And Barbikov holds on to third, but by no means is this fight over. He's going to have to defend for his life at the moment, with Ivanov right behind going through the S's. And you can see Barbikov slightly off the line there, as Van Vukas has made the pass through past Michaels.
Yeah, we're going to take another look at how this one happened. This is Van Vukas, as again very rightly saying, was the quicker car compared to his teammate of Michael, so thought it was very much time and didn't want to hold them up too much. So thought it'd make it an easy pickings with the DRS down the straight and into the top 8, driving fantastically up 13 places in just a matter of a couple of laps. But yeah, Ivanov is trying to ruin the Royal Blue Racing's day and try and split up that podium lockout, but he's driving fantastically, putting the pressure on. This is Ambiditis on the back and looking to the right-hand side. This was very much an easy affair to the inside of turn 1 and 2, and that is as easy as you like it back inside the top 10. But yeah, Ivanov is putting that pressure on Barbakov, and yeah, because Barbakov's really lost touch to his two teammates. Mancini and Prosciutto have just sort of taken off. They're both within 1 second of each other. Prosciutto is there and is closing the gap sort of within that 1 second, but they're just working together, taking off, not fighting together at all. They might have a bit of a battle towards the end if they have the gap, but the most important thing is the team. This is Kevin Morville on the back of George, who well managed to get through, but a big lock up into the Casio triangle. That is unfortunate. Barbakov using his push to pass. You can see on the left-hand side, Ivanov trying to shape up and move down this pitch straight. He might be able to get it done. We're on board with Kevin Morville, who's going to try and capitalize off a compromised George in towards turns 1 and 2. And again, that's as easy as you like it. But those medium tyres, yeah, they seem to have gotten... Well, of course, they haven't gotten slower compared to the softs because the softs deteriorate a lot quicker than the mediums. But Kevin Morville seems, compared to the softs, to have really fallen off.
Which is a real surprise, because it's coming up to the point in which the soft tyres are going to be reaching their limit. And I really mean that. The vibrations in the tyres around this track, even if you haven't locked up, the tyres vibrate, and it gets worse and worse the longer you go. On those soft tyres, you go about 8-9 laps, and you can just feel your wheel just vibrating as you go along the straights. So I'm surprised that that Morville is dropping down on those medium tyres, which at this point should be the faster of the two compounds. But it looks like that's not the case. It looks like the mediums will go further, but the speed is definitely the working window, is definitely earlier than the soft tyres, which is a massive surprise.
Certainly so, and maybe it could be a one-stop race because these soft tyres aren't exactly losing so much pace as quickly as we thought. Again, speaking to a couple of the drivers, they said the pit window will be around about lap 12 to lap 18, preferably around about the lap 15 mark. You can see George looking to the right-hand side of Kevin Morville into the Casio triangle. Had a bit of a look. Not much able to go for it though, and once again Ivanov has gotten through on Barbakov to get himself into P3 and has spoiled Royal Blue's day, at least for the time being. Still a long way to go though, and he's got a long way to the top 2 in front of Mancini. Here comes George darting to the inside of turns 1 and 2. Unfortunately, it's only a fight for P11, and they're not exactly fighting too far up, and it would be a shame because let's see how Ivanov got through. 130R completely flat out, using the slipstream. Is he going to dummy to the inside? Yes, he is. Lovely, jubbly, under brakes. He gets fought though, Barbakov around the outside, the inside for the next part, but Ivanov with that swoop around the outside keeps the momentum up, faster minimum speed, and around he goes. Keeps that position, gets DRS for good measure just to consolidate that place, and that was a lovely, lovely move indeed. Is it over though? Because Barbakov certainly isn't going anywhere. Might be interested in staying with him. Vandeny as well has managed to catch up, so Ivanov has really brought his teammates into the mix.
Indeed, he has, and I think that's going to be to the detriment of Barbakov, because if you look at what happened to Morville, he had one car overtake him and in that train, and then it just slowly became the next car and the next car. And behind Barbakov now is a train of drivers. And is he now going to just start to fall back and fall back? These are pushing so hard. You can see how much they're pushing for their slipstream. They're not just backing out of the fight. They're not going to take it easy and think, we've got to look at our own tyres and think about our strategy. They're pushing for track position over thinking about their own strategy, which I think is fantastic for us. But how's that going to affect their long-term race? We're only 12 laps into this race. We've still got another 30 to go, and they are pushing so hard as it looks like. Van der Neat going for the move to the left-hand side and the outside of turn 1. Barbakov just backing out, and you can see that train of drivers behind already making their way through.
Yeah, absolutely. As everyone tries to bunch up again because this battling is really closing everyone up. But yeah, interesting point. We're not complaining. We're getting action. We get stuff to talk about. But for those guys down there, it's going to make their lives a little bit more difficult, which again will make it more entertaining for us as they struggle towards the later stage of this race. This is again Van Bucus. He's up into P6 now, it seems. This is another move he's made on Kaz Rietveld, the championship leader. So from 21st to overtaking the championship leader. Not the most stylish of moves, but an easy one at that, and definitely shows his pace so far in this race, and he's making amends for his pretty dismal showing in the Academy Championship. Mancini and Prosciutto, pretty dominant display so far from those, but Victor Ivanov, he's closing slowly, but surely that gap was around about 6.5 seconds, now sub 5, so maybe these guys might need to get a bit of a move on. Is Prosciutto interested in fighting his teammate, because look back to last season. Last time we were at Japan, Prosciutto in the Academy Series, he come together with his championship rival, and I don't think he wants to suffer a similar fate with his teammate today.
No, I think they're just backing out. I mean, he is probably trying to push Mancini, but they will be in communication. They will be talking, as that is a pit stop, I believe, for your race leader, as Prosciutto takes the race lead from this Mancini into the pit lane from the lead. That's off of the soft tyres after just 12 laps.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a very early pit stop. Probably committing, I'd say, to a 2-stop. Yeah, medium's definitely not going to the end. So I'm guessing he's going to go maybe soft, medium, soft with a lighter fuel tank. A little bit later on could be the way to go. He's come out in relatively clean air, but I'm sure he's going to catch up to like a Fabian Barley and Andreasen in no time. But that is interesting to note how early he's come into the pit lane, but he seems confident. Is Prosciutto going to respond to that on this lap? Because everyone else seems to have gone for a lap longer. He's the lone wolf in this one.
Well, he's certainly the lone wolf from the very front of the field. But what I do think is actually this is too early for a soft, medium, soft. Looking at it, this looks like a soft, medium, medium, because otherwise if they're gonna go 12 laps again at the end, they've got to go. Well, how many laps is that? I'm trying to do maths in my head really, really quickly, and that's terrible for me. I think that's about 20 laps on, not even more than that. 19 laps on the...
Give or take.
Give or take, yeah. So I think that's more the strategy that would probably go, is the soft, medium, medium. And I don't know if that's the right strategy, actually. Look at how Morville started to drop later on into the medium stint. Is it possible that going longer on your soft tyres, getting onto the soft, medium, soft strategy would ultimately play out better, as it looks like Barley going to the outside of Andreasen after 130. Can't quite do it into the chicane, and that's going to get the sausage curb. That's going to really hinder his exit, and now Mancini, obviously on his lovely fresh set of medium tyres, will try to get up to P number 8. It is DRS, no push past though, not wasting it on an overtake down at the back of the field. He's going to back out, he's going to hold on what is now P number 7.
Yeah, and Cosmo Prosciutto, his teammate, come in and just look at that undercut. 2 seconds he managed to clear him by. That would have been about 1.5 seconds relative to where they were before they both come into the pit lane. That's with Mancini getting involved in a bit of traffic as well. So the undercut certainly is the powerful force here at Matsusaka. Lali also deciding to, I don't think he's come in actually, and he's just behind his teammate, so wouldn't have put up much of a fight for those two anyway, but it is important for Mancini to clear these guys in front, Barley and Andreasen just in front. Barley trying to find a way through as those soft tyres of Andreasen will start to deteriorate, and those medium tyres will start to get a bit of contact between the two as he tried to go for the under and over. And unfortunately couldn't manufacture that move on that particular occasion. But you can see Mancini is biding his time because he doesn't want to throw it away. He knows he's got the pace. Might not be on the most ideal strategy in the world, but we'll have to wait and see how that happens, because maybe for Royal Blue, their tyres can go a little bit longer than the likes of Kevin Morville's. Here's Barley having another go, not even using his push to pass. Andreasen is, though, all the way down this straight, draining quite a lot of it as they go through 130. Quick flick to the left. Andreasen under pressure. Barley is going to dummy him to the inside. How late can he break? It's late enough. Andreasen all the way around the outside though. Barley's going to go for the under and over, get the drive. Remember, he's got the drag reduction system to put some pressure on down the pit straight and in towards turn 1. Look out for Mancini though. He's going to go for 2 and 2. Barley to the inside of Andreasen for P5. They're 3 abreast on the run in towards turn 1. Mancini all the way on the inside. Andreasen sees him, nearly comes across him. Mancini gets one of them, and unfortunately for Andreasen, that completely killed his momentum, but a great move from Barley.
Indeed, and you can see why Barley's pushing so hard. He's obviously the top 5 now, and then Andreasen as well. They're the only drivers not to have stopped so far. Barley being on the medium tyres, he's wanting to use the most of those medium tyres now that he's got them. Over Andreasen, soft tyres, those tyres now 15 laps old, as with your 3 leaders, of course. So they're pushing them hard, they're pushing them far. Definitely a different strategy being played. They aren't going for a soft, medium, medium. They would have been in already. They're looking at very possibly that soft, maybe soft, soft, medium, possibly soft, medium, softs, but they aren't looking at doing the same strategy everyone else. They are throwing it out the window. Cass needs to. He was so far behind. He wasn't in this fight for the lead. He needs to throw caution to the wind, try an alternate strategy to get another nice result out of this weekend.
he's got to gamble. He's got to go for it, as we see Prosciutto, I'm assuming, make light work of Andreasen into 130R. Indeed, it does. But yeah, completely right. And the 3 Netrex boys, of course, it worked from an Imola. Tried something slightly different on the strategy. They were getting chased down by Grankvist in those dying moments. Managed to make it work. They managed to consolidate a podium lockout. So these strategy calls from Netrex have worked out before. And for Kaz, yeah, he's got to try something different, because if it pays off, gets onto the podium, is in contention maybe for a higher up position, as we see Van Vukas try and go around the outside of Barbakov, but doesn't quite manage to get that. But yeah, for Kaz, it's I try what I was going to do anyway, finish P8, P9, maybe P7, or I try something different and I can, double, triple my points yield out of this race.
Indeed, Mancini then holding on what is your provisional race lead outside of those who haven't completed their pit stop. Then it comes Prosciutto and Lalu as your top 3. Once the first set of strategies are played through and all those pit stops are complete, when those final soft runners will come in, I've no idea how they've pushed them 16 laps so far. I've no idea. I almost blew them after 12, as that was a really deep run by Barbakov. 2 deep, in fact, 3 wide on the exit. They're still 3 wide as they come through. They look like they've sorted themselves out of it, so slightly still 2 wide behind Van Vukas, as it looks like it's going to be Barbakov stuck on the outside though to Andreasen. In fact, he runs off of the circuit ever so slightly. Is he going to use push pass to try and get back through, or is he going to just agree that he is now behind? Obviously, with Van Vukas already have completed a pit stop, he's going to look to the inside of 130R, but he's not going to make that move. No push to pass being used by Barbakov in that overtake, in that attempt to overtake of Andreasen. That's deep and wide by Andreasen. Could be a good exit here from Barbakov.
Certainly so. He's going to set it up, try and get himself back through. Not entirely sure if he's pit from those soft compound tyres. It would make sense if he has, because he certainly was up there at the sharp end. And if that is the case, and Van Vukas has also come in, Van Vukas has got himself up in front of someone who was contesting for the top 4. So that just goes to show how good his drive has been so far. Prosciutto, well and truly on the back of his teammate in this second stint. Of course, they were both held up by the likes of Barley a little bit earlier on. But Prosciutto certainly has kept with him. Might be the quicker of the 2 cars, but again, Royal Blue will be saying, we need the points, boys. Let's just bring it home. Let's have a nice team result, and hopefully, hopefully for us, they have a bit of a fight. We'd love to see some inter-team rivalries, but as a team, they have a job they need to focus on. But Prosciutto, that will surely be a little bit frustrating, because surely for him, he knows he might be a slightly quicker. Still going on between these guys. Andreasen being a bit of a mobile chicane as Stefan Michaels tries to negotiate his way through on the exit of the hairpin, using that slightly better tyre, better grip, and getting off of the exit of the corner allows him to just drive straight in front. Prosciutto is still there with his teammate, and remember, this is the fight for the provisional race lead. They are 1 and 2, but if they don't fight, it just goes to show how good these two are working together.
What I was thinking about during that is actually think about the undercut that Mancini got when he pit just 1 lap before Prosciutto, and I was thinking that's a lot of time to be giving up if you're out in that lead, you're still on those soft tyres, if you're Andreasen still on the soft tyres. And I just looked, they've run 18 laps as this is Morville on in his medium tyres, soft tyres still out. They're going for a 1-stop. They're pushing for a 1-stop. They aren't doing a 2-stop strategy, because at this point they've got no benefit from running those soft tyres as long as they are. They're going to pit probably within the next 3-4 laps, go on to medium set all the way to the end. Think about it, they're almost halfway through the race on soft tyres. Why go for 2 more stops?
That'll be brave. And yeah, if they can do nearly half the race distance on softs, they can easily do that on a set of mediums. The question is, how much time are they doing it whilst doing it? How much time are they losing whilst doing it, I should say. And they've got to be careful, because, people can make steady progress, and they will make light work of these guys if they can catch up. It's not easy to defend if you've got that big of a tyre deficit, but it's a risk. They're willing to take it. They're saving that time in the pit lane. They're minimizing themselves that time in the pit lane. They're going to save themselves probably, between 18 and sort of 23 seconds if they can pull this off. But that's 23 seconds that they're going to have to, maintain those tyres and keep them within a good window of pace. You can run these tyres for quite long, as they have proven. Is that Ivanov into the pit lane? I think it might have been. Indeed, it is. He's the first of the NetRex boys to come into the pit lane, unless Kaz followed him in. Indeed, he hasn't. So Ivanov is the first to do so. But yeah, interesting strategy from these NetRex boys to go long. They have maintained, what is that, a good, 13 seconds between Mancini and Vandeney. They've got 13 seconds in the bank, and that's also with minimizing the time in the pit stop. So it's looking good, but only time will tell.
Indeed, you've got 3 teammates, though, all running that same strategy. I mean, by the end of it, it means they're not going to fight. Even if they're really close together, they know just run 1, 2, 3. I mean, you saw Imola how good they were in just running in a line. And I think that if that's the case come the end of this race, where they've just got to run one behind the other, benefit each other with the use of DRS, slipstream, and just push the cars as hard as they are. I mean, before Ivanov pitted, he was 14 seconds clear of Mancini, so it's slightly more than obviously the gap is at the moment. So he's dropped behind, he's 16 seconds behind. Come to another pit stop, he's going to be another possibly 14, 15 seconds ahead. Maybe even slightly more now that he's on these fresh medium compounded tyres over the drivers who have now been on their mediums for 6-7 laps. So I think this is an interesting chassis. I just say brave. They needed to do it though. Kaz, P11 in qualifying. Best he was running was P7 in the race. He's got to do something different, and I think the whole team working together to do something different, I think that is a really, really brave, but also amazing call to make. Not just one of the drivers doing something different because they're slightly far behind. Vandeney was in that fight for the top 4. Ivanov was in the fight for the top 4. They weren't off of it, but they've all done something different, and it's either going to work out for them or it's going to end very, very badly indeed. But I mean, we've got 22 laps to find out.
Yeah, certainly so. Time will tell. And it certainly seems that it's been orchestrated by those NetRex boys in order to do this one. And, you know, it worked in Imola. As we said, they tried something different. 1, 2, 3. Hopefully for them, it's going to be a similar story, because that brings Kaz Rietveld back into the mix and minimizes the amount of points he could potentially lose to his championship rivals. But also, the Royal Blue guys are working together on that other 2-stop strategy, so they won't be losing time fighting either. So it really is going to be a battle between the two teams. NetRex versus Royal Blue, the 2 strategies as well, but it's a 3v2. These 2 Royal Blue cars, and who's that? Oh, that's Georgioff in the NetRex, which is such a big shame. That is a car without a rear wing and into the barrier. We're going to take a look at how this one came about. Through the S section, through the left, and then the final right. Just lost a bit of a twitch, lost that rhythm that you so very crucially need, and around he goes, collected someone else with him as well, and into the barrier, and that is such a shame for him.
Indeed it was, but before we clicked onto that replay, I just I saw a glimpse of it, and I'm absolutely astonished. But Van Vukas is P3, and he is 1.8 seconds behind the leader.
Hasn't got a front wing. He is driving around without a front wing. We were just talking about how he could potentially spoil someone's day in this race from P11 onto the grid. Try something different. He come into the pit lane to get rid of those soft compound tyres. He's going to have to take another trip down the pit lane in order to repair that front wing. This is how it happened, probably in a similar fashion.
Involved,
perhaps it was with George. Yeah, I saw a NetRex go into the side of him, and that is such a shame. He had no time to react to that one, and well, they're 2 NetRex cars as well, and they've just spoiled each other's day, and that is such a shame for our championship leader.
That was a real shame, as Pisciuto takes the lead in this race over Mancini. They've swapped over. Is that possibly because of Pisciuto now running a little bit faster? They've decided, okay, you can take the reins this time. But you can see P number 4, not too far behind. It's Lalu P3, but Van Vukas is involved in that. We've got a really close fight going out the front. Here's the overtake then. Pisciuto behind in P number 2 as he moves to the right-hand side. No fight at all from his teammate. Mancini just allows it to happen. There's not really much you can do along the straight. But I don't think there's going to be too much fighting. That was an easy overtake there. No time lost between the 2 of them. They've swapped back.
Which is strange, because now this has allowed Lalu to maybe... I think he's actually creeped inside the DRS range of Cosmo Pisciuto as well. I think we're going to see the swap back. Maybe Pisciuto made a bit of a mistake, got in front, had the opportunity to use that pace, and then very easily so has made a bit of an error. Yeah, over the AstroTurf, goes very wide. Mirko Mancini says, okay, I'm coming back through because I'm not stopping just to let you back through. And that is a shame because they've tried to orchestrate this so well and unfortunately hasn't quite worked for them. This is Ivanov, I think, on the back of Van Vukas going to the inside, gets himself ahead before the corner. But Van Vukas, no discredit to him, he's still inside the top 5. He started last in this race and he's right up there with some of the top names in the Pro Championship, doing a fantastic job. But now the two Royal Blue boys, unfortunately, they've got Lalu and potentially even Ivanov to be worrying about.
I honestly think I should just stop talking. Every time I start to discuss strategy or fighting or anything that's happened, something's happened to completely change around what's going on the screen. Within moments, every single thing is changing. But I think this is going to be an interesting second half of this race. Now, that's it. We're only halfway. I mean, there's so much that's happened, so many changes to the outlook of this race, and we're only halfway. We've still got 20 laps to go. Strategies, you've got to think that now we were looking at, obviously, Kaz Rietberg, we were thinking that alternate strategy. He's had to do a second stop. He's on to another set of mediums now. But you've got Barbakov, soft tyres, already with one stop. So he's going to be going for a double soft stint. You've got Morville, who started on mediums. He's on the soft tyres. So you've got to think the strategy's still up and down the field. There's late play going into it because you can think the early pit stops, they're going to have to pit again. The late pit stops, I mean, if you stay out of trouble, unfortunately, some are not staying out of trouble. You've got such a good position at the end of this race. If we go for another overtake, it looks like Amphidisis goes to the outside of Barbakov, makes that move for P6, as Michaels is looking to get past Vanderneet for P number 8 as they run in line into turn number 1 and 2 there.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick swap of positions, but we've just been reminded on our ear from Cameron Rodger. Victor Ivanov is on the one stop. He's one of those NetRect boys that was trying that one stop. He's gone long in this race to try and minimize that time in the pit lane, and he is only 3 seconds off these guys who have to make another stop. Ivanov is looking fantastic for the latest stage of this race, and of course with Royal Blue having their slight troubles a little bit earlier on with Mancini and Prosciutto, they seemed unfazable, really. They worked so well together for that first stint. Might be unraveling just a little bit in this second stint, but they've managed to get back on it. They're settled back into rhythm. We'll just have to see how they get on. Ivanov, though, is putting a bit of pressure onto Lalu, and he might be able to get himself back up into a net podium place. But yeah, in terms of strategy, I think Ivanov has hit the nail on the head, and we'll have to wait and see how this one transpires. Still a long way to go, as you say. But Barbakov is trying to make some steady progress as well. Get back up to the front of the field. Ivanov trying to go for a move on Lalu, but you don't want to go for a move in the Castro Triangle just in case they can come back at you with the DRS, because look at the run he's got now. He's so close to the back of Lalu with the DRS, with a little bit of push to pass, just to slingshot his way past and up into P3. And in fact, he might even be able to set sights on the top 2. Here comes Barbakov to the outside of Amphiditis. Is he going to launch his way all the way around the outside of turns 1 and 2? You can see Amphiditis giving him a fight all the way through. Still side by side this fight for P6. Barbakov is going to win it for the time being, using that fresh soft compound tyre grip. But certainly was a good fight from the NetRex cars. It certainly is a war between these two teams.
It really is. It's been fantastic fighting up and down the field all day today, and you can just see the amount that I'm amazed that Amphiditis stuck it in as long as he did through that corner. They got so close, but that's showing the limit that these drivers are pushing to. They aren't just backing out of the fight. They are pushing as hard as they possibly can for every single position. Of course, they don't need to. 18 drivers left in this race. No matter where you finish, you're going to get points. But, you know, a measly 3 and 4 points. Who wants that? I'm a racing driver. I want to win. I want to get the most amount of points possible, and I'm going to push as hard as I possibly can. Most drivers on those medium tyres, of course. We're going to start to see now whether those soft tyres do actually have a longer working life, because we saw in that first stint, Morville on the mediums started to drop back on the softs around him. Are we going to see Barbakov start to move forward again once those soft tyres get into a good working range?
we certainly could, but Ambiditis hasn't let him out of his sights at all, really, because he's now putting the pressure back on Barbakov down the pit straight. Barbakov looking in his mirrors, going to the right-hand side. Is Ambiditis going to go inside? Yes, he is. A car's exit in the pit lane, though, and he's going to have to avoid him. Back up the inside, back into P6. Great little battle between these guys, but that certainly could have ended disastrous because of the relative speed between those two cars. I think Ambiditis was so tucked up behind the rear wing, he pulled to the right, then saw the car, and he might have had, he might need a change of underwear for that one. We're going to have another look at it. Ambiditis in the slipstream, using that DRS, looking to the right-hand side. There's the car leaving the pit lane, darts to the right-hand side, had to thread the needle through, but still managed to make the move stick. And the more they fight, the more Barbakov is going to get held up in this fight. So it might just be a steady state fight for P6. Van Vukas has consolidated himself well inside the top 5. Prosciutto and Mancini still within that 1 second, and that looming threat from the one-stopping Netrex of Viktor Ivanov.
Indeed, you can just see though that the leading two pulling away. They've got to find the time now, but they're on the medium tyres. Ivanov on the fresher mediums, pitting about 7-8 laps later than the two leaders. And I think that when it comes into the next pit stops for Mancini, for Prosciutto, whether that's onto mediums, whether that's onto softs, whatever it might be, they're going to have fresh tyres near the end of the race. They're going to be able to push back at Ivanov, and that's where the strategy is going to either win or lose, as that was a really nice overtake and a move into the chicane there. And straight away diving into the pit lane, is that Barbakov?
I think so. I think it was, yeah. Van den Neat managed to get through. Barbakov into the pit lane, getting rid of those soft compound tyres. Van den Neat as well is one of those people on that one-stop strategy. Still only 7.5 seconds off the likes of Mancini and Cosmo Prosciutto, who we both think certainly will have to take another trip into the pit lane for a fresh set of boots. So don't count out these guys at all. Those that are trying the one-stop, those that are gambling, those that are being very patient, very careful on the tyres, because very easy to get frustrated and want to get involved in the mix, but they have to think, no, I have a job to do. This is going to work. It's going to come back for me towards the end of this race. If I get too impatient now, if I start pushing a little bit too early, I'll ruin that chance a little bit later on. So it's all about patience, and that's really going to separate the good from the great. Ivanov, though, he's balancing, keeping those tyres in a good window and keeping the pace up, because he's closing in on these two, and he's the one that has to nurse these tyres to the end. Whether he's still managing to keep them, save them to the end is a different story, but at least at the moment, for the job he's got to do, he's still showing some really good pace.
Well, our broadcast director, Cameron, who obviously has experience on the pro grid, I mean, two DNFs, as much experience as you want. He says that it's probably better to have Ivanov to come in for a second stop, go on to the softs near the end of the race, and absolutely bang out as many fast laps as he can, and just push them really, really hard, and he'll have a better opportunity, thinking that he's only 1.5 seconds behind these lead drivers. He's going to have a better opportunity going on to softs for the very end.
Yeah, here comes Van den Neat to the inside of Ambiditis, gets the move done in towards turns 1 and 2. And that is an interesting thing to note. In fact, yes, he's got the pace over the two in front of him. He could just match their strategy if it's the one that potentially is better, because he's closing and he's still got to go to the end. Maybe just match him. Don't have that don't be suspended in anticipation to see what happens towards the end of the race. Match their strategy, take the fight to them, and then win it on track. Because if he goes long and he's stranded on old tyres and they catch up, he's got nothing he can do. At least this way, he's put himself into the driving seat and he can do something about it. He can get after him, and then we might be able to see some overtakes. But Mancini, Prosciutto, I think Ivanov's really lost touch to his teammates. Of course, Van den Neat has got, I think, just trampled down in some traffic. Rifelt as well had his troubles a little bit earlier on with George. So Van den Neat's by himself. Ivanov, sorry, is by himself. And I think Mancini and Prosciutto are going to try and let him know that.
Indeed, obviously, before we had 3 drivers up at the front running the same strategy, and now you're the only driver on it. You don't have that defense behind you to hold up the drivers as they come on their charge. You are one man by yourself, 2 fast drivers. Look how close he is. Look how close he is to the back end of these 2 drivers, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to get involved in a fight with them before any more pit stops come into play. It's going to be how early do these leading 2 drivers come in, and what tyre do they choose? Do they in fact go for another set of mediums, or do they extend these mediums just a bit further than they would want to get onto soft tyres and try to defend off Ivanov with the same set of compound tyres, because being on the medium tyres, you're at a disadvantage. And I don't think that your two race leaders, the two drivers that have been controlling this race from the start, will want to suddenly be the drivers at a disadvantage come the end of this race.
Absolutely, and he is now within touching distance of our top two. These medium tyres for these two certainly are deteriorating. Ivanov's tyres are going to be slightly better. His pace has proven to be fantastic as well. And now it's a 3-horse race at the front of the field. Mancini and Prosciutto, they haven't fought each other. They haven't held each other at all. And still Ivanov has been able to close this gap and is right on the back of him now. And Prosciutto, for his own race, might need to think that he needs to get a move on, might need to get back past Mancini if he wants to consolidate a good position in this race. We'll have to wait and see how that one conspires. But yeah, Ivanov doing a fantastic job, and we'll have to see how the strategy pans out for him. Lalu as well is still within touch and distance. He's there. Van Vukas recently has come into the pit lane for a fresh set of soft compound tyres, presumably to the end of this race. So look out for him to be pretty quick as well. But Ivanov, that's Mancini into the pit lane. He's biting the bullet. He's committing to come in. Prosciutto all by himself. It's a 1v1. Royal Blue Prosciutto versus the Netrex of Ivanov.
I think that'll probably be soft tyres. That's 13 laps to the end of the race. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see what tyres are put on. Mancini is, in fact, soft tyres. So, yeah, pushing hard to the end. Ivanov's going to want to come in around the same time. We've seen how the undercut, how much time you can gain in just a single lap on the undercut. Yes, Ivanov's on the fresh mediums, but if he's going to come into the start, he's going to want to do it at the same time as Prosciutto. He's not going to want to lose too much time. That being said, at the moment, over Mancini, there is a lead of 20 seconds. So there is quite a large gap back to what is effectively our net race leader if everyone was to come in for a second stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Van Vukas was able to get the undercut on the Royal Blue of Mancini. In fact, has the track position on him. Will his tyres go the distance though? But that's another roadblock in the way of our pole sitter of Mirko Mancini. If he's got the pace to catch up to Van Vukas, he's then got to get through. And how much of a fight will Van Vukas put up? Because, you know, Mancini, he was leading the race. Now Van Vukas has got in front of him. If these two, Ivanov and Prosciutto, come into the pit lane, he's the one that's going to take the helm at the front of the field. And that will certainly be interesting. From last to potentially first, we'll have to see. Prosciutto into the pit lane. Ivanov stays out. Is he committing to his previous strategy? Because Van Vukas, ahead of Mancini, he's got 16.5 seconds in hand, has Ivanov, as well as Vandeny, who goes into P1 and 2. Will the Netrex boys just try and hang this one out?
Yeah, he's going to stay out. They are not going to come in again, especially Ivanov, because he's noticed now Mancini is behind Van Vukas. He doesn't want to pit where he's going to come behind now Van Vukas, Mancini, and also come behind Prosciutto as well, as on the exit. Oh, only just Mancini getting past Prosciutto there on the pit exit. But that is Lalu right behind. Also has completed his second stop on his final set of tyres involved in this. What's happened? What has happened to Mancini and Prosciutto? Because they were so dominant out of nowhere. The driver who stepped in for this race, our reserve driver starting from the back of the field, is currently P4 and first out of all the drivers who have done 2 stops.
Well, I know Matt is watching on in the YouTube chat. He said it would be a bittersweet moment to see this car do so well, but I'm sure he's really rooting for Kostas Van Vukas, who's doing a fantastic job in this ground effect sim racing car. They've had a fantastic day so far in FSR, and I'm sure they'd love to consolidate that today in the Pro Championship. 2 seconds. I think Van Vukas has in fact gained on Mancini, who nearly sliced his teammate's front wing off as he exited the pit lane. Lalu is now in the mix as well. Ambrositis isn't far off either. 1.6-ish seconds between them. We thought it would be a 2-horse race. It'd be a dominant display. Royal Blue run off with it. They don't fight. Blah, 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 blah. 1 and 2. Jobs are good. No, this has really spiced up thanks to the strategy, thanks to the mishaps that potentially have happened down at Royal Blue, and thanks to the absolutely insane pace that the Netrex boys and the other people in the mix have brought to the table. Van Vukas, thanks to Kevin Morville pitting, is now into a podium place, and he is growing that gap to P4. He is flying.
I don't think you can say there's been any mistakes by the Royal Blue drivers. I think they have done the absolute best they can. It's just that this alternate strategy being played by your race leaders now, that's just come in, and I think it's completely thrown in a completely new idea as to what you can do in this race. I think what's happened is Van Bucus is your main step on your party. As you say, he's gaining away from these drivers. Now, you can say that is mainly because he's obviously got the heat in his tyres. He's got a couple of laps under his belt before these drivers came out of the pits. But what you could also think of is the fact that he's just genuinely shown so much pace, and these drivers have had 3 weeks since round 2 to practice this track. 3 weeks, and most of them I've heard around the field have been practicing wet racing, because that is what everyone expected. Yes, you ran your dry laps, but most people have been running wet races. The servers have been full of rain. And now this is something that's completely different for a lot of what a lot of the drivers were expecting. You can see that actually I think Pursuito is starting to feel a little bit on edge here. He's getting really close to the back of Mancini. Is it now that he runs with Mancini, they both say, yeah, we're still going to get this, we're going to improve our position? Or is Pursuito going to say, no, this isn't going to work, I'm getting P4? He looks a little bit into the inside, hasn't pushed for the move yet. 11 laps to go. 13 seconds from Van Bucus to the lead, 15 from Mancini to the lead.
Yeah, indeed. Van Bucus is making steady progress on our 2 leaders. Not probably enough in order to maybe... I mean, to be fair, if those soft tyres can get the distance, Ivanov and Van den Eek, their tyres are going to be pretty battered as we get towards lap 42. We'll have to wait and see, though. But that gap has sort of stagnated between Van Bucus and Mancini, sort of teetering around the 2-second range. They're not really gaining nor losing time on each other. But yeah, as you say, Prosciutto, has he got faith in the team? Can they trust them in order to close that gap? It's now 14 seconds between himself and the leaders. And, you know, will he see himself on the podium? Will he now just think, no, I've got to, in order to retain this good position? Because he's played second fiddle this entire race. He's played the team game, and he might just say, no, I need to get as many points as I can for my championship. And, you know, you've put me on this strategy. I've done everything you've asked, but in these later stages, I've got to think of myself. But yeah, Van Bucus, 11.1 seconds now is the gap between himself and Ivanov. That's your race leader, with literally now 9 laps left of this Japanese Grand Prix. Once again, it's a strategical game. The race is going to be won or lost in the pit lane. Netrex have tried something different. Van Bucus from the back of the grid is now a talking point for the race victory, and we'll have to see how this one happens. But we can't say we've been deprived of action today, whether it's been on track or not. There's been excitement and there's been drama.
Indeed, Pursuito put in the fastest lap of the race on lap 32, so he is absolutely flying. But as we said, he's held up by his teammate almost, but he's trying to stay in that team game. At this rate, Van Bucus is going to be able to catch Van den Eek, but he is closing a lot of time. 2 seconds, 2 laps ago. 1.5 seconds last lap. He's closing to that leader. He's definitely going to catch Van den Eek by the end of this race. But how hard is Van den Eek going to fight him and possibly allow Ivanov to hold that lead and win, to the detriment of Van den Eek? Maybe he might lose that podium, but he could push his teammate to win this race, which would be a fantastic result with the ups and downs that Netrex have experienced during the course of the last 33 laps.
Yeah, absolutely. So Van den Eek might play the team game, of course. Yeah, if he fights, he's going to bring Mancini and Prosciutto. He's going to be sitting duck to those two as well. So might see himself as low as P5. Lalu's there as well, P6 maybe, and that would be a shame. We saw also at Malaysia people trying the longer strategy. Did really well, but just got picked off towards the end in a similar fashion. I think really is, yeah, as you say, for Van Bucus, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And Van den Eek knows that. He is just saving as much as he can. You can see he's hardly used his push to pass. He's got a lot in store. Here's Prosciutto to the inside of his teammate for the first time in 34 laps. Well, I say that the second time. He tried to get through a little bit earlier. Was not fought by Mancini at all. Now Prosciutto takes the helm of the Royal Blue Racing cars. And now he's going to try and get themselves onto the back of Van Bucus. Was that orchestrated? Was it planned? Did Mancini just let him go? Or is this now Prosciutto putting himself into the driving seat?
I think that was very possibly orchestrated, the way that went through. So clean, no fight, at a perfect point when neither driver lost any time. Because I think that at this point they're talking to each other and they know that Pacito is the faster of the two drivers. He can still catch Van Bucus and he could possibly take that third position, possibly second position if they catch up to Van der Neet. It was once again last lap, almost 2 seconds that Van Bucus gained over Ivanov. So he is still absolutely pushing and catching those leaders as we come down now to 7 laps to go. We're heading up to is 7 seconds. I believe we've done this countdown before. I believe that we looked back at Imola and we were doing this countdown every single lap. We were just seeing what they needed to do. But at this rate, 2 seconds a lap, he's going to be at Van der Neet's door within a couple of laps. He's going to be at Ivanov's door before the end. But when are those soft tyres going to fall off? But the mediums, obviously, they've been on since halfway through this race. They are also going to be coming to the end of their life.
Yeah, but those soft tyres, I think now we're going to start to deteriorate or get to a point in their lifetime similar to those medium tyres, and we'll have to wait and see how that balances out in terms of the drop-off point. Those mediums will hit the cliff, probably you have to expect before the softs, but remember, Van Bucus got the undercut on Mancini, and that was what enabled him to get himself into this position. This is Fabian Barley having a horrible time into the hairpin. And his wheels well and truly knocked out of alignment, and a spin for good measure into the barrier. And that is a shame because Matsusaka is a punishing circuit.
Indeed it is, and you could just see the tyres not facing the direction that you want them to face, having to have the wheel almost completely to the right just to get it to go forward. So some issues there going up into the chicane, not great for him. But back towards the lead, looking at our last lap times, and once again it was an improvement on Van Bucus catching up, not as much as he would have hoped for that time, only about 1.3 seconds last lap, but the gap is still closing, and the gap now to Van der Neet is less than 3 seconds, and you can see them within the same camera shot now. And I think that's showing you how much Van Bucus started P21, was inside the top 10 within the opening 10 laps of the race, and it was a name that literally we were just thrown by Cameron at the very beginning, saying that he's stepping in, he's just a reserve driver today. We're like, okay, it's good to know. Little did we know that it was important to know, because he has stepped in and he is showing his absolute dominant pace that he's got in this car in the Pro Series, when he's just been racing, he's showing his skill in that Academy Academy Series. Where has he been? Why is he in the Academy Series? We need him in this Pro Series every single week. He is an absolute superstar to be able to pull from the back.
Yeah, absolutely. He has driven brilliantly, faultless you could even say, because he's put himself in the position to be where he is now. He's driven fantastically and you can't fault him. He's now within that 1 second range, flirting on the edge of it though. He's nearly there, and once he's in, he's then going to be able to close that gap exponentially, get right up onto the back of Van der Neet, and we'll have to see what sort of defense Van der Neet can put up in order to protect his teammate, who's 5.5 seconds up the road compared to Van Bucus. He's going to try and hold his offense, and as the laps tick down, so too do the opportunities. Van Bucus is going to be looking at the lap counter. He knows what pace he's got, but has he got time on his side? That is the question. 3.130R. He is within 1 second. He will get the drag reduction system. It's only a matter of time now until he gets himself into second place.
It's amazing. 10 laps to go. We were talking about, can Mancini, can Pacito, can they hold off first and second position? We've completely written them out the picture. They're down in P4, P5. They're not really catching up to these leaders at enough of a pace that we could see a fight going on by the end, I think. This has completely changed the race on its head. It's 3 drivers who've, been there, but not been a name for the contention to win throughout the whole event. And now, dying stages, final 5 laps, it's all about them. Ivanov leading your way, Van der Neet, P2, right on the rear end. Van Bucus looking to take that second position. As you can see, it's got the Tucson name on the front of the halo. It's not his car. He's stepping in, and he's stepping into some very, very big shoes right now, because he's going to look to the inside of P2. Can't do it. A little bit of a lock-up, it looked like, because the way that the car just adjusted its angle. Coming out, though, of the hairpin. He's right on the rear end Are we going to see push to pass coming down towards 130R? I think we are. I think this is where we're going to see our overtake. How smooth, how quick can Van der Neat get out? Is he going to be using push to pass on the exit? I believe so, to try and hold this position. Here they go. No push to pass from either of them. That is interesting. Oh, there you go, Van der Neat using push to pass right at the end of the straight. This could be looking for a DRS from Van Bucas and just going for the move up towards turn number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. He's all over the rear end now of Van der Neat, isn't he? How much push to pass has he got left? Has it all big slide there? That's completely ruined his chance, his momentum, and he cannot be wasting opportunities like this. He's got the DRS. That's going to help him latch on and reel back the time he's just lost in order to get onto the back of that Van der Neat, that Netrex car just in front of him. But without that mistake, probably could have got it there. But now this is an extra lap. This is a lap lost that he's got to catch after Ivanov. I don't think he can do it. I'm not confident that he can do it. But again, we didn't think he'd be up here at the start of the race. So we'll have to wait and see what he can do. It really is a time will tell race because, yeah, this really wasn't the running order I would be expecting at all. Mancini has managed to get back in front, of course, Mo Prosciutto. But Matt Tucson, yeah, he's going to be watching on and cheering Van Bucas on. We need him in this Pro Series because he hasn't had the race experience yet. He retired from lap 1 in the Academy Championship. And he hasn't had this race experience. He's jumped in to the second highest category in FSR, and he's put on a show.
Indeed, he has. You saw how close he got through in the hairpin there. Not really an overtaking location, so he stayed behind. They are together catching Ivanov. So you said that he might not catch it, but they've closed the gap from 5.4 seconds to 4.4 seconds across this lap. So actually, I think that even though he's caught up behind Van der Neat right now, he's not exactly losing too much time to Ivanov. He looked to the inside. A big defensive move from Van der Neat there. Can he get it without a slide? Yes, he can. He's definitely going to get this move now. DRS is going to be wide open. Push to pass enabled from Van der Neat early on there, but that's push to pass and DRS for Van Bucas. He goes to the left-hand side, but this is Van der Neat going to be defending into turn number 1. There's something. There's contact. This around goes Van Bucas, and that's going to be his podium chances gone. He is down to P5. He is down to P number 6. I can't fault anyone for that. That was a racing incident. But what a shame, right in the dying stages for a driver who's about to get a podium in his maiden pro race. Here we go on board Van Bucas, looking for the outside of turn number 1, and he just turns in. And around he goes. Just a little bit of contact. Let's ride on board with Van der Neat for that move. He moves to the right. He goes defensive. He moves back to the left just to squeeze up. Make sure he gets his run. It's turn number 1.
Just a slight tap, isn't it? It
no,
really isn't
no,
much.
he's
And that
lost
is
it.
that.
He loses it by himself.
He wasn't
and then
helped.
There's contact. So he was helped afterwards, but he had started to slide before. I think he probably could have held it if he didn't get tabbed, but he did start to slide before the contact happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Now Mancini has taken the helm. He's the one now putting the pressure on Van der Neat to the outside of 130R. We're certainly getting a fight for P2. It's not the one we were expecting. Van der Neat stays ahead. Mancini tucks in behind. Is he close enough for a send into the Casio triangle? No. Van der Neat stays in front for the time being. But now the two royal blue cars, Mancini, Prosciutto, they're both now fighting for second place. Ivanov is going to be licking his lips at this, rubbing his hands because he is now in the driving seat. He has clear passage in order to try and take this race victory. Van Bucas luckily managed to get it going, but outside of turn 1 and 2, it's 9 times out of 10 not going to work. That's such a shame. Still going to bring home for P6, which is a fantastic result considering where he started, but it's not the result he was hoping for. It's not the result he perhaps deserves, but a small mistake on the dirtier side of the circuit, and around he went, which was a big shame and such an anticlimactic end. Well, it was a massive climactic end, but wasn't the one we were hoping for to that fight. But yeah, now Van der Neat, he's got 2 royal blue cars to keep at bay.
Indeed. I mean, I know that we haven't done it for the previous 2 races, but Van Bucas definitely gets my driver of the day. That is amazing that he's gone from P21 to fight for a podium. A shame that it looks like he's going to come home in P6, but maybe even P7, Emphasis right behind him. But it looks like, you know what, he's proved that he's here to fight, and he's proved he needs a seat in this Pro Series, and I hope he gets it before the end of this year because he is proving his worth. As here goes Mancini to the left-hand side. Van der Neat not leaving any room whatsoever, but he's got the overlap before 130R. He's up to that position. Vandeny is going to get the DRS, of course, going on to the main straight as they come up to the final few laps of this race. But Pistouto is going to look also, that's going to be 2 drivers with DRS, both going for P number 2 as they go along the main straight. Here we go.
Here we go. Vandeny, can he put some pressure on? He's using his push to pass. He's closing the gap. Not quite enough, but he's kept Pistouto at bay, and he might be able to keep that P3. I think that's what he's going to be able to have to try and consolidate now. That's all he can, really, as Van Vukas is now trying to make some... Well, he hasn't, actually. He's lost the place to Amboditis. His tyres must be shredded as Kevin Morville gets past on Barbakov as well. But Ivanov, clear passage. A lap and a half left to go in this race. 5.5 second lead. Mancini is not going to be closing that one down anytime soon, especially now his tyres are a little bit burnt out from that one. But can Pistouto get past on Vandeny? He's proven to be valiant in defence. Can he keep him behind? Lalu's also in the mix as well. Vandeny's defence might cost him dearly, but if he can keep him behind, he's going to consolidate a Netrex 1-3.
Indeed, we talked about consistency. Ivanov getting P3 at the opening round in Imola, not competing at Malaysia, so we needed something strong. You needed to fight back, and he's definitely done that. The alternate strategy paying out, showing what could have been for Kaz Reitfeld if he hadn't got caught up in the incident with his own teammate. He could have got yet another podium position, but here goes Pistouto on the outside of 130R. There's a little bit of contact going into the corner, but he's got it on the outside. Vandeny definitely backing out very slightly going into that corner. Lalu right on the rear now, a little bit of a slide from Pistouto as they go up to the final lap of this 42-lap race, where every single moment has been filled with action as we go side by side. Lalu to the right-hand side, the inside of Vandeny. Is it going to go a bit cleaner this time for Vandeny? Yes, it is. He's going to have to give up the position, but he drops down to P number 5. Lalu, what a great move up to P4, and that is now a 2-3-4 for Royal Blue Racing. What a result, and I know that they were hoping for first, but I think with the strategies being played, this is a good result for them. Ivanov, though, still leading away, 4.5 seconds clear. This is his race to throw away this last lap.
Yeah, absolutely. Just needs to keep it clean. He hasn't got long left to go. Just about half a lap or so. Mancini has made some progress. He's pushing. He's trying to take any chance that he can. But Ivanov, I think he's chilling. He's just trying to bring it home. He's using a bit of push to pass just to keep it there. We've got a bit of front wing on the circuit. Not quite sure that's from any of our top contenders. In fact, it's Fabian Barley again having some misfortune going on to the final lap. Unfortunate for him. Mancini has tried to close the gap, but on board with Ivanov, he has played this strategy to perfection. His pace has been unrivaled in this second stint. He's been an absolute tyrant of this race from the first pit stop onwards. He did something different with the strategy, tried to work with his teammates. He was a lone wolf left out in front to fight the 2 Royal Blues. He's done a fantastic job. He exits the Casso Triangle through the final right-hander, the short run to the line, and Ivanov wins round 3, the Japanese Grand Prix for the Formula Sim Racing Pro Championship. It's a fight between the 2 Royal Blues. Mancini and Pistouto come home in formation with Lalu just behind there. It's a 2-3-4 for Royal Blue. Then comes Vandeny in the Netrex, Amboditis, the other Netrex in P6. Van Vukas, bittersweet for him, stepped in for Matt Tucson, was in for a shout for at least second place, maybe even the race win. It's only 7th, but a round of applause to him. He is the star of the day. He's done fantastically. From 21st on the grid to 7th is a feat in of itself. The fact he was even remotely in with a chance of the race victory is astonishing. Our championship leader, Kaz Reitfeld, though, not his brightest day.
Indeed, Ivanov, 66 races in the Pro Series and his 4th victory to boot. What a great result that was for him. A fantastic alternate strategy, really played out, and you can just see what it could have done for his teammates if there weren't any other issues. But as you say, start of the show for Van Vukas. What an amazing result for the driver stepping in just to fill a seat, and he has proved he needs that seat. I know that there's definitely going to be some shivers going down the spines of a few of those Ground Effect Pro drivers as to where they might be after this event, because that was a great job of Van Vukas, and definitely he needs a spot on that grid now. But Ivanov, you can see getting celebrations in with his teammates. I mean, I don't think we've had a clean celebration yet, have we? There's always been something going on at the end of the race that has caused a crash or a loss of a front wing. Let's see if we can get some clean celebrations in, please, guys. But what a race that was. Edge of my seat the whole time, and it kept on changing. Everything we said, something different happened, and I can't wait for the next race, Zach.
Neither can I. And we said before it would be a fight between Netrex and Royal Blue. Today was no different. It was Victor Ivanov, your victor for the Pro Championship, with Mirko Mancini and Cosmo Prosciutto 2 and 3. Then comes Lalu, good set of results, 3rd and 4th over the last 2 rounds for him. Then comes Danny Vandeny, rounding off the top 5. Ambazaitis for Netrex in P6. With Kostas Van Vukas, again, our star of the day for the Ground Effect Sim Racing team, coming home a bittersweet P7. Kevin Morville P8 with Babakov P9. Disappointing for him after his show in qualifying and that first stint in the race. Stefan Michaels rounds off the top 10. Kaz Rietveld, our championship leader, or is he? P11 at the end of the day, with Andresayan in P12. Thomas Wack, after a pretty-ish day for him, comes home P13. A couple of mistakes crept in. Casper Nizio P14, with Frank Hamming rounding off the top 15 for Valley Esports. Then comes Fabian Barley P16, Harry Smith 17th, and Patrick Hanko, the last of those that made it to the checker flag, in P18. Those that didn't, George in the Netrex Grand Prix in P19, and Chris Gitzoff rounds off the grid in 21st. That was a fantastic race. Before we round off, Richard, in fact, Kaz Rietveld still just about is our championship leader. I say just about. 13 points he's got over Lalu, but just look at how close that is and how close it's going to be over the rest of the season.
Indeed, it is really going to be really close, and I think that is showing now the consistency that Kaz had at the beginning. It was going to be there. You could see that before his issue, but right now, that's going to put a hit into his championship lead. Yes, not as big as you sort of would expect. It's still quite a huge lead. 13 points over Lalu, 14 over the race winner here today, Ivanov. But I think that if he's going to keep on having those small issues, he said that he wasn't great at Malaysia. Fortunately, that turned out to be quite a good race for him. We've still got 6 rounds to go. Anything can happen, and this race shows you, look how much action happened in just 42 laps. What's going to happen in 6 more races, and some amazing tracks lined up for the rest of the season too.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly cannot wait. Join us then for the Pro Championship in 2 weeks' time on the 17th of April for round number 4. And whilst that's the Academy and Pro done, do not miss the FSR World Championship over on the VCO channels and still on the Formula Sim Racing channels as well. But yeah, as we always say, massive thank you to VCO for coming in and aiding FSR this season as well. A massive thank you to Masita Esports, 3D Raps and Sim Labs also for returning and sponsoring Formula Sim Racing. Well, you've got the World Championship in just a few moments. You'll have Lewis McGlade and Ewan O'Leary in the commentary booth for that one. But Richard, it's time to say goodbye. From myself and Richard, have a good one. Bye-bye.